Welcome to The Maintenance Mindset, an audio-video podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm your host, Paul Rhodes, and over the more than 3 decades in the apartment industry, I've had roles that include being on-site, providing services as a vendor, creating and delivering multiple education programs, and active association work. This podcast is centered on the often overlooked role that our on-site maintenance workers play. You know, the men and women that respond in the middle of the night to the toilet call, or the after hours, it's really hot in my apartment request, or my favorite, my ring fell down the drain, get over here now. In other words, the often unsung heroes who are responsible for asset preservation and resident satisfaction. Working in multifamily maintenance provides interesting, sometimes amusing, and often fascinating stories and viewpoints. My encouragement to you is this: whatever you do, do it with a maintenance mindset. Hey there. I'd like to continue our talk that we started last week about efficiency. And just to remember, efficiency is defined as a lowered ratio of the quantity of work performed and the amount of energy that goes into performing that work. Those two items. Again, we have leverage to where we can either decrease the quantity of work we're providing for the same quantity of energy, or we can decrease the energy and provide the same level of work, or decrease both. But that is the definition of efficiency that we're looking to adjust. And today's topic, I'd like to apply that to our on-site maintenance operations. And if we're defining the work that we're performing as service requests, and we're just defining the energy involved as faster service. So we're going to do the same quantity of service requests, but we're going to do them faster. Let's think of some ways that we can adjust that. The first idea is to look at the parts that we have on hand, our supplies. Do we have the correct quantity of parts that we need for what we're doing and what our goals are? If we go back through the parts that we use at our property, chances are that the actual most common parts would be down less than 50 individual items. When I was looking over supplier contracts and agreements a few years ago, one of the ways that I evaluated the companies that I was interested in doing business with was to come up with the top 100 parts that we used. Now, at the time, I was doing this evaluation for 17 or 18 properties. And out of that, I found 100 common parts that all of the suppliers that I went to see if they wanted to do business with us or make an agreement with us, those 100 parts I was able to get price matched across the board. That was my apples to apples comparison on basis of price. I mean, there's other values that went into that equation. But what that taught me or reinforced to me is that in our on-site operations, we're often dealing with a very limited number of parts that we end up looking at and using or reinforcing. So those limited number of parts, why can't we have those on hand all the time without fail? Not only have them on hand, know where they are at your community. Your chances are, if your shop is like most of the shops that I've been in and spent a lot of time in, the challenge becomes just how easy it is for things to get misplaced or kind of end up being all over. So not only have the parts that you need, but be able to find them. Most suppliers, you can get a quantity of bin boxes. Have those bins labeled, have those bins set in place with, my favoriteest way was numbered with minimum and maximum levels. Maximum is the most you'll ever use in one time period, let's say a month. Minimum is the least you're ever going to have inside that bin. Often what it means is the smallest amount that you will use in between the time you place an order and that order is received. That's the way that I generally tend to think. I also have that go along with, I want to only organize one order per month. That way, I'm organized enough to where I minimize the amount of time that I have to spend in order to place an order. By minimizing the quantity of time that I spend placing an order, that's more time I have to be out in the field and fixing things. Now, that one thing, dealing with the parts on hand, has a huge impact in the speed with which we make a repair. All of this is a requirement that we need to be certain that we are adjusting or accepting as a part of our operations. Another thing that we can do to decrease the quantity of time that we have on hand fixing service requests, dealing with work orders, is be sure that we have clear expectations on service request repairs. What that means is, if a resident calls in before 10 a.m. in the morning, be sure that our office team knows that if somebody calls in before 10 a.m. in the morning, that by the end of the day, somebody will be by. Maybe it won't get fixed if it's a non-emergency item. Maybe we'll just stop by and see what it is, get an estimate for how long it's going to take, and then set up an appointment to return. The critical moment here is that we begin to communicate with our residents standardized expectations of the service that they can expect to see. Sometimes when a resident says, "Hey, my faucet is dripping," that's an easy fix. All we have to do is replace an aerator. You unthread the bottom aerator, unthread the old one with the worn out seal, put a new one in. That aerator now traps air in the spout of the faucet, and you no longer have any drips. That is a quick 2-second repair that I can do real quick this afternoon. Other times when I go and identify that a faucet is dripping, it's actually not that it's dripping, it is completely broken. Water may require being shut off to the building, depending on what the plumbing is in your buildings. I mean, I've had apartments before to where I had to turn off the entire property to replace the cold water faucet, because the way the architecture was and the valves were broken on the building, we had to shut down the entire property just to replace a cold water stem in a shower. Hot water stem, the valve on the water heater. It's examples like that one, if the resident knows I'm going to stop by today to evaluate what's going on, I can communicate with the resident why I need to plan a later date. At that property where we were at, we would actually wait until we had 3 cold water faucets to replace and shut down the entire property. Replace all 3 and then turn the water back on to the entire property. That was the decision that was made for us to do. What if we turned our service requests into a contest? We established races. I've got to think that there's a way it could be done. It may depend on what type of tracking your property does. Matter of fact, one of the sponsors of Maintenance Mindset, App Work has a methodology where they gamify work orders. I've got to think that turn it into a game with leaderboards and things like that, that can incentivize making it faster, as long as at the same time we're doing that, we don't decrease the level of excellence that we expect. In other words, we don't give up quality of repair just to increase speed of repair. That, in my mind, is a bad how-to cost. What if we increased the level of communication to our residents? I'm thinking here of a breaker that's tripped, or a GFCI that just needs to be reset. What if we came up with a way that we could train our residents to do those types of repairs for themselves? We empower, we enable them to do it. Now, I believe we still need to track those repairs, meaning I want to know as a maintenance technician that the breaker has tripped several times and my resident has reset it. I think that might be a challenge to doing the speed of repair. Although when you think about it in terms of efficiency, that's actually decreasing the level of service that we're providing. That one might require some thinking through. My hope is by beginning to look at these tasks that we as maintenance technicians perform, that we can increase the level of service and decrease the level of energy or time involved to perform these tasks in a way that overall we become more efficient. Thank you for spending time with me today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your week, and I'll see you somewhere. Thank you for listening to this episode of The Maintenance Mindset. I hope you take away ideas that apply to your current and future career goals. Please check out Maintenance Mindset Minute to hear short-form, high-impact, applicable, maintenance-centered information. Whatever you do today, do it with a maintenance mindset. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. I'll see you somewhere.